Hi, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight Chats again. It's really good to be back. I was going to say after maternity leave, but it's actually while in maternity leave. And it's really, really good to welcome Professor Christine Allen, our lead for the Women in Science group and a professor at the Leslie Dann Faculty of Pharmacy at the University of Toronto. It's really good to welcome you, Christine, to the Spotlight Chat. Couldn't be a better timing with me kind of coming back from maternity leave and you leading the Women in Science group. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm delighted to be here. And thank you so much for your commitment to CRS and everything that you do for the Women in Science group. Very grateful. And you're still doing all of this work during your maternity leave, which is really, well, we're very thankful for it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I mean, CRS is my scientific home, and I'm sure we'll talk about that as well. But yep. But I'm sure a lot of people resonate with why we keep doing our service to CRS on top of everything we have in our lives. So first of all, I find it really hard that someone really needs this bit of the interview, but do you want to talk a little bit about yourself, your research group, what you focus on?
Absolutely. So I've been a professor at the University of Toronto for 22 years. And for all of that time, I've been a member of CRS, which goes without saying. My area of research is drug formulation. So we changed kind of directions in terms of our major focus through the years, obviously changing with time. With the times, I mean, and with what's going on in the field and embracing new advancements. Right now, we've been really focused on integration of AI and robotics to accelerate drug formulation development. So super exciting research for me and my group. And then beyond that, just to say that, I've always worked a lot with industry. I joined academia from industry and usually have 2 or 3 industry partnerships running through my lab each year at University of Toronto.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I've been watching that development of your group towards the integration with AI. And I think it's fascinating, and it's going to be where a lot of people are going. So it's, again, really nice to have you trailblazing the path. So it's really good. You kind of mentioned it when you said, for as long as you've been a professor at Toronto, you've been a member of CRS, but do you want to tell us a little bit about your journey within CRS? Why did you get involved in the first place, and what made you stay, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got involved very early on in my career and was looking really for a scientific home. I didn't have one outside of the University of Toronto. And my first CRS meeting, I still remember it because it was just, I was in awe. In the sense that I was surrounded by so many people like me, meaning doing the same kind of research that I was doing. And I came back after the conference so inspired and energized. And I just wanted that again and again. I wanted to be, even more a part of that. And so have served on the board twice. This is my second time. Obviously, now I'm past president. But I've been in every role: secretary, treasurer. I was on the scientific advisory board when we had one. Obviously, very much involved in the Women in Science group, have been involved with focus groups. So it's just really been phenomenal for me. And I would say in terms of networking, and I talked about industry partnerships, some of those I've secured through connections that I've made through CRS. And jobs for my students and my postdocs. It's unbelievable. I could spend hours talking about the extent to which I've benefited from being engaged in this scientific society. Probably most importantly, I've found, amazing mentors there and friends, like real friends. And many of those are involved in the Women in Science group. And it just, science is hard. It's hard slugging in science and research. And I was telling someone last week that more often than not, things don't work, whether it's, an experiment that you're trying or a paper that you submit. I got a rejection this morning, a grant that you submit, and you need support. You need to see, other people that are going through what you're going through and that are willing to share that experience openly. And I found those people through CRS.
I think that's so important, and I share that feeling of that impact of the first meeting, and what you mentioned. I also got my postdoc job at CRS in my first meeting when I attended in Boston in 2017, and I think I've mentioned in these spotlight chats with other guests that I think at the end of the day, after a few years, you go back to CRS meetings because of the science and because of the friends that you're going to see again. I remember having that feeling when I flew to Valencia. That was a very special meeting to me, and I remember feeling that going back entering the plane and thinking, oh, I'm so excited to see my friends again. And again, that's going to happen this year.
Yeah, of
Especially
course.
since I had to miss last year. But so it's really exciting, and I think it's it's really inspiring and a good example for all of us that we can do a lot of different leadership roles within CRS and grow our careers, our networks, and also find these important mentors and advocates through CRS. So that's really
Oh,
interesting.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so now that you're past president of CRS, so you've been through that stage, and you became the chair of the Women in Science group. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to you to lead the Women in Science group, and what are your goals for this group within CRS?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would first say that it was a total honor to be president of CRS. I remember being contacted about that a few years before I actually accepted to run, and I just couldn't do it at the time when they first contacted me. I had too much going on, and so then when they contacted me the next time, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this, and it just meant so much to me to be on stage and open that conference and look out at my peers, my friends, trainees, to welcome them to the meeting in Las Vegas. I will never forget that moment because I had gone, so many phenomenal individuals had gone before me and been president, and they were in that room. And so it just meant so much to me. I can't even put it into words. I almost get tears in my eyes talking
I
about it
know.
because it's much to me. And the Women in Science group, it's the same. I mean, really, the women that have gone before me and led this group, people like Maria Jose Alonso, are just such phenomenal individuals. And so again, it's an honor and a privilege to be to leading this group and being part of this group. We want to grow the group. I mean, really right now, we want to find a way to increase membership because all of the things that I've shared with you that CRS has meant to me and has enabled me to do, I want to make that accessible to as many women around the globe as possible. If I'm being honest, much of what I've gained has been through attending meetings in person, right? Our annual meetings are in person. One of the benefits of having these virtual meetings during COVID was I had the opportunity to connect online through that phenomenal platform that we had with so many young women that told me in those meetings that they cannot afford to attend the meetings in person. So now we're back in person and they can't be part of it. And so one of the things I love about the Women in Science group is that many of our offerings are virtual.
Yeah.
And so we're able to connect with everyone and anyone, and bring that value to them. And so even though they may not be able to attend the annual meeting, which I'd still like to find a way to make at least a portion of that annual meeting hybrid, just a portion of it. I know that we've looked at the cost of running kind of these hybrid meetings, meaning in person and virtual, and it's quite expensive, in particular when we're in specific locations. But if we could find a way to make a good portion of it virtual, in particular things like the Women in Science kind of feature event that we hold each year, I think that would be really, really important for women around the world. Because like I said, it's brought so much value to me. And every woman deserves that, right? In science, we all go through these same challenges. And so we should be finding a way to help everyone.
I totally agree. And that's something we've been discussing in various groups of the CRS. When I was at the Young Scientist Committee, we also discussed about accessibility. And obviously the pandemic brought us to that inevitably, because as you said, it opened into a world of people that weren't reaching the CRS because they weren't able to attend the live or the in-person events. So yeah, I think that's super important. And I think the symposia are kind of also stepping in that direction. The fact that we have these virtual symposia at CRS shorter meetings that are virtual, but yeah, definitely being able to have the events at least partially hybrid would be really good. And I think that there's a feature of the Women in Science event that is very different from all other events, and that is it allows us to connect to the people behind the scientists. I remember my first I don't remember if it was the first, but I remember the few women that I saw receiving the Women in Science Award in the first few meetings that I went to were Molly Stevens, Paula Hammond, Molly Shoishet, and I was like, wait a minute, this amazing women are real people with real lives and kids and families and things that they focus on beyond science. So I think that magic of the Women in Science event should be able to get to everyone.
Totally agree. It's the story behind the scientist, right? And it brings it just it brings, I was going to say, so much value, and it just brings I found it so helpful to hear those stories. Someone like Paula Hammond, for me, I've always just been completely awestruck by her science and everything that she's achieved, and then listening to her personal story, which is really what is shared in those Women in Science events at the annual meeting, as you know. And just listening to that was so empowering and inspiring. And, you know, there were many pieces within her story that I could relate to, and that I'd felt that I'd lived some of that. And so then it's, you know, okay, she's gone through that and she's succeeded, so I can go through this and I can succeed. There's a little bit of that also, I think, that's so important. And yeah, no, I love those events. Those are probably some of the most special moments, I think, at CRS.
Yeah, and it's definitely that. It's you cannot become what you cannot see, and I think we need a lot of that, and a lot of those examples in really successful women, including yourself, obviously, but with those other stories behind.
And Laura last year, Laura Ensign, I mean, that was so phenomenal. I guess, I know you missed that, right? But it was...
I missed it, but I did get the chance in Montreal to see Laura receive the Young Investigator Award, I think it was, and her talk was amazing.
I listened to her at the Women in Science session last year, and I came back and I shared her story with my daughter. It was just a phenomenal story. I mean, and she's a, you know, brilliant scientist,
Yeah.
and extremely successful. And it's just so, it's like I said, you know, I still remember that story and sitting there listening to the story. And so it lives on with you throughout the remainder of the year, right? So it's just, yeah, it's just an amazing feeling. And then you're part of this. And I connect with Laura through the Women in Science group monthly. So isn't that amazing? And that's what I want to bring to more women. It can't just be a select few or those who can afford to attend the meeting. It's got to be bigger than that. And we can do that through these virtual offerings and on a very regular basis at very low cost, right? So this is this is our goal really right now. So we're just kind of putting together what our offerings will be, and that's what we aim to do.
That's great. Another topic that I know you've been looking at, and I've seen posts you shared on social media about this, is obviously the lower presence of women in citations, in publications. But if we go even more narrowly into CRS, there's very little women receiving key CRS awards, let's say the Founders Award, for example. So how do you think we can address that, and what can we do? I know that we just missed the nomination deadline last week.
I know. But well, I had given a talk at CRS a few years ago. It was during COVID, so it was virtual, and I had a number of statistics that I shared, and one was around the Founders Award. And fortunately, Maria has received that award, so we do have that. But it's really, I don't even have words for, you know, the fact that there's been so few women that have received that award. It's really crazy. What we do have an awards commission now that we've put together within CRS, and excellent people on that commission who are looking very carefully at the way we are, kind of advertising our awards, or marketing the awards, maybe is a better word for it. And you know, the the way we're adjudicating the awards, the composition of the awards committee, because it's all really about that, right? It's who are we nominating? How are they getting nominated? How are these awards being evaluated? Who's sitting around that table? If it's all previous recipients of the Founders Award, right, who are largely men, we're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Because you really need to have a diverse representation around that table, even for award adjudication. And so there's a lot of work going on there right now in response to kind of some concerns. And so I have confidence that there's going to be a little bit of an overhaul. But at the end of the day, I do believe quite strongly, and I was very busy last week writing reference letters before the deadline, always waiting to the last minute, of course.
Yeah.
As an academic, this is what we do. I hate being last minute, but you know, it's all about who we put forward for these awards. That's the first piece, right? Then we've got to consider, okay, who, you know, what are the criteria and who's around the table making the decision and so on. But the first step is who are we nominating? And so I encourage everyone to nominate as many members of equity deserving groups. So not just women, members of equity deserving groups, right? Because we also have to be looking at how many members of the BIPOC community have been receiving, or the racialized community have been receiving these awards. And I think that number is also very small.
Yes.
So you know, it's really about that. And that's what I said to myself this year. You know, I've got to be nominating people. I've got to be nominating, in particular, in my case, women. And so that's what I was doing. I was nominating women this year for a couple of awards. And that's what we have to do. We've got to be out there nominating and identifying candidates, nominating. I do believe the awards commission is going to make some good changes. And so I think some you know, something good will come out of that, but it's also about advocacy, right? So if we don't see the changes that we want, then we've got to advocate for it. And I think the Women in Science group is a perfect group, as is the EDI committee, to do some of the important advocacy work that needs to be done around that, because the numbers don't make sense. We have phenomenal women. You know, Ruth Duncan, for me, she was one of the first women, Ruth Duncan and Terry Allen. Those were the two women that really convinced me to go into drug delivery. And I hadn't even met them. I'd been reading their papers. When I met them, it was just even more wow, right? Neither of them have received the Founders Award.
Yeah.
Right? Pretty much everybody knows their names, right? Their household names. So those are just examples. And there are, of course, many, many other women as well.
Yeah. And I think you touched a point there that is really key, which is advocacy, and advocacy comes from other women, but it also comes from men in the society. And I have to say that I can tell a personal anecdote that I think is really, really important. And I remember in the meeting in Valencia, in the Women in Science event, someone mentioned how important it is to have mentors and to have advocates. And I'd never thought about the difference between them. And at the time, we talked about how advocates are those people who speak for you when you're not in the room. And I remember, and this year I received an email from a mentor, a male mentor, saying, I think you should go for this award. I ended up not going for it because I don't think it was the time, and I ended up nominating for something else. But it was so important to me to receive that email and to say someone thought I was deserving of this award, even if I didn't go for it, even if I didn't get it. That little bit of confidence is so important to continue going.
100%. And those people just make the world of difference. I agree. I've received those emails before. And it's a confidence boost. So it's even if you don't see yourself in that light, which has been my case in someone else, wow, this person thinks that I can go for it. Then it's like, oh yes, maybe I should go for this, right? And we do have many men, I have to say, within the society that are very supportive of women. They are advocates for women. And I work closely with many of them and have benefited from their advocacy. And I see them active, you know, for example, on social media. And that's also really important to me, to know that they are out there and they are advocating for us, not just for me personally, because it may not be for me personally, but it makes a huge difference and gives me, you know, even more kind of you know, interest in being involved in our society. So yeah, no, very grateful for that. And I see these men now attending our Women in Science event.
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
what we
here we
want.
are sponsoring the Women in Science event. I know Art Tipton has sponsored it for a number of years, and he's attended. And it's you look around the room, you see men there, and that's what we need, right?
Yeah,
It's not just about women, pushing and encouraging women and advocating for women. We need everybody advocating for women,
yeah,
and members of equity deserving groups. So I really love that about CRS. And this year in particular, we're making that event. It's open. There's no fees at all associated with it. I think that will only increase attendance. And there's so many
yeah,
times when I've been at these Women in Science events, and I wished my husband had been there to hear what these women were saying.
yeah.
And, this is what I love about men coming, is that, they will hear this and they will then be able to be better partners, better brothers, better fathers, because they will have heard some of this, right? So
Yeah.
it's just so important to share those messages, as I said, to make it as accessible, available as possible.
And I think for us as, I mean, you and I are academics, but also for people in industry, anyone who has to manage people and to supervise people, it's really important to hear the realities of people who are different from you. If you're a woman, then hear the realities of men, and as you're saying, equity deserving groups. Someone, if you don't hear that reality, then you never know what those people need from you as a supervisor or as a mentor. So I think it's what you said. It's really important for men to attend the event as well, to hear from us, hear from what our concerns are, and it will make them actually, yeah, better partners, brothers, fathers, but also better supervisors.
That's very important. Thank you. Very, very important one. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Christine, you briefly mentioned it, and just before we finish, you mentioned Ruth Duncan, but I was going to ask you for 2 or 3 role models that you clearly come top of your head, that are, or that you met through CRS, or that came to your path through CRS. Who would you say?
Through CRS, absolutely Marie Jose Alonso, Ruth Schmidt. I
We
mean,
all love Ruth.
Olympian, president, brilliant scientist. Is there anything that this woman can't do? Every meeting she's in, is just taken to another level because she's there. She's so wise, so kind, and then Tamara Minko and Debbie Bingham, so many, yeah, there's just so many. I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But I have to be honest, it's women like you. It's not just women that maybe have come before me, or maybe, have achieved these amazing things and I've been able to see them do that. It's also the women that are coming up through the society and the energy that they bring. And, seeing you, now you're a mom, so seeing you kind of grow up in the society, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. And, you bring so much energy and creativity and professionalism to the Women in Science group. We're so fortunate to have you engaged, and we could feel your absence. I'm going to be honest.
Thank you.
I mentioned you last year at the annual
Yeah.
meeting because, your contributions are felt by all, and there's this ripple effect that's so important through the society. So I just hope you know that. And, there are other women, young women coming through the society again, that I look to and say, my God, it's great to see. Like the field is in great hands with all you women coming through now, and the society is in great hands. It has a very, very bright future. And so, I love to see that. And I would never have probably had the opportunity to connect with you had it not been for CRS, right?
That's true. That's
In
true.
the same country. So that's really quite amazing to me. It makes the world feel a little smaller. And I mean that in a good way, and so, yeah, it's very powerful, actually. It's quite a powerful network and very inspiring. And yeah, it's great. I don't even think I can put a finger on or put into words the impact that the society has had on me, and all these amazing women have had. I'm going to miss being the chair of the Women in Science group, because on a monthly basis, I'm connecting with all these amazing women that I've just mentioned. They are in the Women in Science group, right? Marie Vicente, and it's just so many of them are there, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, imagine that for someone like me who is still starting her career, it's kind of, I'm still often starstruck by the fact that I'm on a monthly meeting with so many people I admire. So yeah, I get that
Awesome.
feeling of okay, these people are on the news because they get awards and they are amazing scientists, and I get to meet them every month. So what is happening? So it's really,
Well,
really
you're
good.
also amazing.
So just as a last thing before we say goodbye, do you want to, in view of Bologna in July, in view of this exciting meeting, do you want to leave a message for our members? Is there anything you want to say as we wrap
Absolutely.
up?
Yeah, super exciting meeting coming up in Bologna, Italy. I have never been there. I am so excited to go, and cannot wait for the Women in Science events. We've got obviously our feature event where we hear these stories that we've mentioned to you, the stories behind the scientists, and it's just such a special event, completely open, no additional fee. In addition to that, though, we are organizing a mentorship event with the Young Science Committee that I'm also really, really excited about, and we'll all be there. So even if you're not at an event, but you see me in the hallway or another member of our Women in Science leadership team in the hallway, please approach us, get to know us. We want to know you. And then just beyond that, it's a very special meeting for me. A very close friend of mine passed away in the last year from cancer. And she had a place in Italy, and I'd never gone to visit with her. So I really regret that. So we're going, my husband and I are going right after, actually, just to kind of visit where she used to spend a lot of her time. I'm getting tears in my eyes talking about this. So
Of course.
super special meeting for me for that reason as well. But I have to say the Italy chapter, Italy, you know, we have these amazing chapters all around the globe. And that chapter has really helped to champion this meeting. And I think they're trying to make it very special. So I think you're going to be there and you will genuinely have a taste of Italy. And I think it's going to be a very, very memorable event, just like the event was in Spain. That was such a memorable meeting. And I think it's going to be a lot like that. So it's a meeting not to miss. You just can't miss it. And I look so forward to seeing everyone there.
100%. I totally agree. I'm also really looking forward to it. And I'm sure Paolo and the AMPC team and the Italian chapter are doing an excellent job because, yeah, as you mentioned, sometimes the location also makes the meeting special, and I think this is going to be one of those cases, and I'm really, really excited to go back. After 1 year. I always said I was never going to miss a CRS meeting unless it was for a very important reason, which it was. so this time
Yes. My goodness.
so
Are you bringing the whole family, or are you just?
I hope so.
Oh,
I'm not sure yet, but I'm hoping to.
I can't wait. I hope
I want
so.
you all to meet the little man.
I will also say that to you that last year, one of the things that I noticed was a lot of people brought their children. And I just love that. I loved seeing mothers with children, fathers with children, sitting in the hallways. We had babies, we had, you know, children that were probably about 5, 6 years old coloring. I mean, I loved to see that. So it's there again is just an example of the extent to which the society has changed and embraced, you know, supporting everyone within our community. So that was great for me to see. Very special.
It's a family. It's a family.
Exactly. It's a big family. So thank you, Sarah.
Lovely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. It was really great to have you here. I mean, I've wanted to do the spotlight chats with you for a while, even before the maternity leave. At the time, to talk about your presidency, this was perfect as well to talk about women in science, and we ended up talking a little bit about your presidency and what it meant to you. So it was really good. You are a super inspiring woman and scientist in the community, and a really nice person, which is so nice. So I'm really looking forward to see you again in Bologna as well. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Awesome. Can't wait. See you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.